Welcome to the 7th episode of 30 Minutes Robotic Milking Edition. I'm your host, Dr. Marcia Andrews, Dairy Science Professor and Extension Specialist at University of Minnesota in St. Paul. I'm hosting the webinar by myself today. Some instructions before we get started, or some logistics. If you're watching this episode as a recorded webinar, please join us live next time by registering at z.umn.edu/30minrm. Episodes are held on the third Thursday of every month at 11:30 a.m. Central US time. If you are here live today and want to watch the webinar recording, please go to z.umn.edu/rm episodes to watch this episode and the previous 6 episodes. And you'll receive a message, a follow-up message that will include that link after you attended the webinar. Just as a reminder, we are going to use the Q&A box is on the bottom of your screen if you hover with your mouse. And I would like you to type your question in this box or your comment. And then I will ask the question or the comment to their producer guest. Please do not use the chat box. It creates more, confusion for us here. So Q&A is what we like you to use for participating in this discussion today. We're very pleased today to have with us dairy producer Jared Feltz from Wisconsin. Hi, Jared. How are you? Please join us.
Hi, Marcia. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm doing well.
Thank you. Very much appreciate you taking the time. And Jared will give us a brief 10-minute or so overview of their dairy operation in Wisconsin. And after that, we'll open up for the discussion session. So thank you, Jared. I'm going to go away for a little bit and then I'll bring you back. I'll come back to work with you on the questions. Thank you so much. And I'll move your slides. So when you want to go to the next slide, just let me know, please. I'm not hearing you, Jared. Are you okay? Are you there? Hello? Looks like we might have lost Jared for a bit. He'll join us back. Technology does not work every time, does it? So we're going to see what's going on. We had a test prior to this event. This is the first time we have this happen. But anyway, he should be able to join us briefly here. So we'll have the possibility. There you go. There he is. We lost you for a little bit there, Jared, but I'm glad you're back.
Sorry, I think I got booted there. Am I back?
Yes, you're bad. I don't know what happened. Never happened before, but this technology, as we know, including robots, it doesn't work 100% of the time. So I'll go away again and let you be here. Hopefully by doing so, I'm not booting you out. Maybe that might be what's happening. So maybe I'll just mute myself and just stay here quiet. How about that?
That sounds good. Okay, I'm not sure what all went through or not, so I'll just start over. I'm 6th generation here on our dairy farm. We're in central Wisconsin. We're currently milking with 4 DeLaval robots, running about just over 200 cows through the robots. We do still have our parlor in operation, a double 12 parallel parlor that we're milking about 400 in there. We are in the process of retrofitting another barn and putting 4 robots in there as well. So just to explain kind of how we got started with robots and where we're going with robots, in 2016 we built this building all the way on the bottom of the picture. That's a 2-robot setup, kind of a classic DeLaval guided flow configuration. At the same time, when we built that building, we built a retail store or a dairy store on the front end. So that's what you can see there. We started milking in, let me think, the fall of 16, and then we opened our retail store in the summer of 17. The reason we got into robotics, started with robotics, was kind of twofold. One, we loved what we had seen from other.
We cannot hear you again, Jared. So maybe you want to log out and come back. So this is the first time that we're having these issues. So I want to wait for Jared to talk about the barn, but here's a picture of the facility where they have the 2 robots. There you are, back. I don't know what's happening. Like I said, maybe some internet connection or some issue going on, but I just move on to your next barn picture here, where you can kind of show a little bit the inside of it, I guess. But you're talking about earlier why you decided to go into robots. So maybe you want to finish that thought, I suppose.
Yeah, so it was a way for us to expand, and it was also a way for us to get our foot in the door with robots. So we put 2 of them in. We really liked it. And so the next step, then we tried to figure out how we could retrofit existing barns. So that's what this picture is here. This is our second set of robots. This was a little bit of a wild card for us because it is kind of a modified guided flow. And you can see the robot all the way at the end. So this is a 60 cow pen that we just stuck in the middle of a 4-row barn. You see 2 rows there with a center feed lane.
All right.
But cows could potentially eat and lay down, and so we were a little leery of what's going to get us that true guided flow. Being into it now a year and a half, it's worked out awesome. We really like it. We used every square inch of that pen. I think there might be another picture of the robots, but there you go. That's just the opposite end of the holding area and the sort gate there. So we do manipulate water a little bit. We play with water on the feed side to help achieve the flow that we're looking for. Like now, we will turn water on in the hotter months, but otherwise it's worked really well for us. And so we'll continue to do that configuration. Our next 4 will actually be 2 robot pens, so that'll be kind of another new thing for us. But I know there's several dairies out there that are doing that and that are having some good results with it. So the picture on the go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, and we talked about you're gonna do those on an angle, right? When you put in the 2 robots.
Yeah. Yep. The robots will sit at an angle, and it gives really good, nice entrance and exit for the cow. Picture on the left is more of that classic DeLaval. I know we saw several like this before we started. Kind of a proven design. Those are 60 cow pens as well. Really like how it works for us. Being a selected herd with the parlor in operation, we do most of our cow selection on configuration, teat configuration. And so especially those first two robots are the older model. We have our best uddered cows in there, and can be a little more liberal on the V300s, which were the next 2 robots.
And you have the classical finger gates and all classical milk first here. Okay.
Correct. Maybe on the next slide that might, yeah. So that's a picture of the holding area on the classic robots. We decided to put the foot bath at the back of the pen. Big reason was to keep all that mess away from the front of the robots, and We have some viewing windows from the store, from the dairy store. So, and also, you know, it may or may not affect throughput through the robot as well. So we've been happy with that. And actually, our newest robots are going to have two crossovers that same size. One will be a foot bath. One will be just a crossover. So,
and
alley scrapers and all the pens.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Marcia.
No, I was just gonna ask you. You ran the cows through here how often again? Through foot.
So we're filling the foot bath 3 times a week.
Okay.
And then it's just open the other days of the week. So
Okay. So that was overview of the brief overview of the facility. Now we move to show you the store a little bit and the window you just mentioned a minute ago. So you can see here the, right? Go ahead.
just briefly about the store, that was kind of my mom's seed.
Mhm.
And we thought it was a great opportunity to join the two of them together to give the public kind of a view of what we're doing on modern dairies today. It's worked out really well. We've learned that it's a lot different than milking cows. But there's really a lot of neat opportunities through the store. So not only do we sell all of your classic Wisconsin products, meat, cheese, milk, ice cream, chocolates, we've expanded that to corn maze in the fall, cheese boxes in the winter. We'll have events throughout the year here. So, and that too, we had family members coming back to the farm. And so right now, managing the store will be my mom, my brother, and my sister, and my wife also helps out there. So, it's been a good experience for us.
Yeah, it's great teaching the public, lots of tours. I remember being at your dairy one time and a buzz was coming in and then the store gets filled up with people. I love the store, by the way, guys. Every time I'm around that area, I was like, I gotta go stop at the store. Some great products here.
Well, thanks. And we're really excited because we just started on-farm processing as well. So,
oh, I didn't know that, Jared. On-farm
yeah,
processing. Oh, wow.
we're pulling milk right out of the robot pipeline, and my brother is making fresh curds every morning. Usually by 9-10 o'clock, he's got fresh cheese curds in the store. So another opportunity that we're excited about.
Excellent. I didn't know that. So I have to stop by again to get my cheese curds. Anyway, thank you so much for the overview, Jared. Of course, there's always a few more questions and things that maybe were not covered. So I'll get started with the Q&A here. Oh, somebody was asking if we could restart with the reasons, I guess, the reasons you went into robots because you got a little cut off.
Sure.
So if you don't mind telling us again, thank you.
The big reason is we felt that's the future for milking cows. The robots milk cows and they do a pretty darn good job doing that, but it's also the environment that the robots offer. The way these barns are set up, short walking distances, low stress, alley scrapers, tunnel vent. It was the whole package. So that was the biggest reason. And again, of course, labor is always part of the equation. That was the same for us. But I think number one is we felt it was the best option for the cow. So.
Excellent. And maybe somewhat of follow-up of clarification question. So attendee here is asking, why do cows get out of the robotic barn? How do they get out of the robotic barn and back to conventional? I don't think you are moving them back and forth, are you? Unless they're hospital cows?
Yeah, I'd say very few. I mean, we would reject, because they don't conform for whatever reason. I mean, less than 5%. But otherwise, once they're in, they stay in. We do commingle our dry and fresh cows. And then they typically come back 5 to 7 days after fresh to the robots.
Oh, 5 to 7 days. Okay, excellent. So all your fresh cows are in the conventional and then they move into robots.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Question here about the estimated startup or setup costs to start processing your own milk for the curds, if you can share that information. Just curious about the processing costs.
Yeah, actually, I would say, so we ended up taking half of our milk house, the original robot milk house. We put a wall through the middle of it. So excluding the building, the shell itself, I think we had close to 100,000 in that plant, and with COVID, I think that kind of slowed things down, but it was well over a year process by the time all of the licenses and permits went through. So ballpark 100,000, I would say, and that's I think we have a capacity of roughly 1,000 pounds of milk that we're processing every day.
That's pretty good. So they have to go through the typical inspections, all that, right? Because you have to be able to do that to sell milk. So,
and again, it's you know, for good reason. It's definitely more involved than your typical, you know, milking inspections and you know, regulations. So
sure. That's interesting. New direction, if you will.
Yeah,
very cool. So coming back to cows things now, are your treated cows milked in the conventional parlor, or are some of the robotic cows that are treated stay in the robotic barn?
So I try to keep cows in the robot barn and just set up automatic dumps, unless she's too severe that it affects her visits. I don't want to lose ground on a cow, but if it's more of a subclinical type of case, I'll just treat her in the robot. It just seems to work out labor-wise and having to, you know, move her back and forth. So.
And how do you find those cows? Are you using just the system? And then how do we detect if a cow actually has mastitis? It's always a challenge in robots, right?
Yeah, yep. I would say that the MDI index is something I use probably the most, but then coupled with milk production, and we do have collars on all the cows now. So.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, that was an investment we made probably 2 years ago now, but has really worked out well for us. So usually between those three tools, we can find them pretty quick. So
excellent. When you transition from, did you transition from 2x or 3x milking? And then what was the response in milk yield for the cows that went into robots?
Good question. Actually, we were 4x in the parlor, so we actually did lose milkings. 4x was actually something that my dad did mostly for our employees several years ago, because 3x you have kind of that odd milking time. With 4x we could have a day shift and a night shift. So we went from 4x to with the truly guided flow, we always hung in that 3 to 3.1 on milkings. Now today we're 2.9 with the partially guided flow. So, but again, a kind of a common theme is that we really love seeing the flexibility it gives to peak cows, where you're getting 4 to 5 milkings maybe out of them. So we don't need to milk some of the tail end cows 4x in the parlor, but we haven't figured out how to make that happen.
Right. So the robots give you that flexibility. And now when you go to the 8 robots in September, you're going to have only about 100 cows left. That will be still conventional, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So that's going to be how you decide. So you're going to select cows and maybe don't adapt as well to robots. How are you going to make the decision who stays in the conventional and who goes to robots?
Yeah, utter confirmation, those cows just won't be able to make it, but I think it's really going to make our robots that much more efficient to where when we do get to tail end cows, let's just shuffle them to the parlor and bring somebody else in type of scenario. So for now, we're going to stick with a 100 cow parlor group. We do have the option to go fully robotic, but it might be a nice, you know, tool again for us to have.
Okay, so we didn't comment or talk about production or somatic cell counts or anything like that. Would you be willing to share what is your average production in the robotic barn, and maybe how that compares with the conventional, and also somatic cell counts?
Sure. The robots typically production wise run at about 103 pounds. The parlor's right at 100. On a energy corrected milk, they're always neck and neck. And so it's been kind of interesting to watch that. And we usually attribute that to the way we feed cows in the robots, slightly lesser components in the robots. So parlors usually now in the summer we're about a 4 and a 3-1. In the robots about a 3-8 and a 3 right now. Somatic cell count wise, right at about 100 in the parlor, and we've probably been in the 150 on the robots now for about a year. So
very comparable, I guess, between the two.
Yeah, they are, especially on energy corrected and feed costs too. We've run that, you know, all the time. We look at that, and those two are very similar, which I guess makes sense when you look at, you know, energy corrected milk is very similar.
Interesting. How many people do you actually have working at the dairy now for the dairy farm part of it?
Good question. We have 6 people dedicated just to the parlor. Okay. Myself, my dad, and we have a longtime employee that does all of the non-cow things. So field work, mechanic work, things like that. But right now it's 6 people. Our goal with these next 4 robots is to get down to 2 people, to where we can just have a day and a night, just kind of simplify things. So
2 people total, you mean?
2 people total
for each shift.
Will have, yeah, 2 people total, one person in the day and 1 person at night.
Oh wow. Okay.
We will need another kind of a half a person
to
fill in those gaps, but we've really always, the goal has been to have fewer higher skilled people, and you need those skills obviously with robots, so that's the direction that we chose to head in.
Sounds good. So that person is also responsible for the maintenance of the robots, make sure the robots are working every day, checking them out, those kind of things, cleaning them, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And yeah, trying to do a lot of the less technical maintenance on them. Yeah.
Interesting. Question here from the audience: how do we evaluate whether your robotic system is working at its optimum? What are your performance indicators, if you will?
Certainly we all look at production. That's probably the first thing I look at. But then from there, in the completes, that's something I look at very, very often. And now that we've been in the robots, you know, for 5 years, really looking at idle times, milking times. Of course, we have the option to move slower milking cows out, but just really trying to hone in on what the robots can do for us. You know, we're looking more at milk produced per robot than we have before. Again, just trying to make those robots efficient as possible. So we're over 6,000 on a couple of the boxes, but that's really our goal, is to be in that 6,000 and upwards as we move forward. So
they're keeping, what's your density, stocking density for per robot? 60 cows, 65? What's your target there?
Yeah, just under 60 on
under
the
60
classics, classics, but then the V300s from 60 to 63. I think we might be able to get to that 65. I know a lot of people are doing that, but we always want to watch, you know, our wait times in the holding area and milking frequency.
Right. Well, so you had the waiting times you're watching. You said, so how long a cow stays in that holding pen usually?
Yeah, that's right.
Is it an hour? Is it less? Do you watch for that? I mean, at all, or
no, I don't know that. I don't know that number. I just look generally at, you know, how many cows are standing in that holding area. But I will say that typically the spread between the classics and the V300s is about 3 to 5 cows difference that I've seen the new ones.
Interesting.
Efficiency wise.
Okay. Quick question probably here. Do cows stay the whole lactation in the same group once they move into that group?
Yeah, I've sometimes if I get like on the classics, if there's a cow that as she loses, you know, that inflation in her udder where the classics can't quite milk her, then I'll slide her over to the 300s to finish her lactation. But generally they stay in their group. Yeah.
Okay. question about the future here. Are you considering at all automatic feeding robots?
No, haven't considered that. That would be like a complete feeding system, correct?
Right.
No, haven't considered that. We have some of the robotic pushers, but that's as far as we've gone there.
Okay, good. How important is an accountant in making a decision towards robots? I guess looking at the financials, of course, before you move into having robots, I suppose is the question. An accountant or looking at financials with you.
I'll speak for us. It wasn't super important for us. We really just look at, and robots are slightly more difficult to financially justify because they're not as financially efficient as a parlor. But we looked at quality of life. That was a big part for us. We based it off of about a 7-year payback, prepay on labor. So I think that's kind of ballpark is what people use. And then of course you've got the robot, which I see a lot of them that are making it well into 10 years. So, but the bottom line is you've got to make significant milk in robots to really to cash flow them well. So.
Especially in our economy here in the United States. I mean, we have a lot of participants from all over the world here. And yes, in the United States especially, we have a very tight margin. So definitely need to do that. So obviously, let's see, don't have open questions here. So it appears to me, since you guys decided to go to more robots, you started with the 2, it was a demonstration barn and kind of experiencing with it. Now you expanded to 2 more, have 4, and expanding now to 8, right? So I would maybe summarize or from this that you guys are satisfied with how robots work for you. They haven't been too difficult to manage, if you will, that you're willing to, there's some costs, of course, costs of maintenance. I hear a lot from producers sometimes that the costs might be close to $15,000 per robot per year, or some people can spend less because they're more handy and they fix things themselves.
Yeah.
But it looks to me, you guys as a family felt that is a way to go. Robotic milking worked out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'll go back to, we really like what it does for the cow. But even maybe just as important was the labor side of it. We all know how difficult it is. Well, in most any hands-on industry, it's hard to find labor, but where we're 365, 24/7, to find a really dedicated workforce is challenging. And we wanted to put more of our focus on managing cows than managing a workforce. So fortunately, these give us that option. And the big thing too is that they've got to be practical. I mean, and what I'm saying there is they've got to be able to milk cows on a large scale, which they obviously do, as you see a lot of larger farms moving that direction. So the technology has gotten to the point where they can be on farms and be doing a really good, consistent job milking cows.
That's excellent. Yeah. And it reminded me, you guys have sand, right? For bedding again.
Yes, we do have sand bedding.
So yeah, because always sometimes people ask, can robots and sand work? Many dairies in the US that I visited use sand. I mean, maybe a little more of a hassle. You got maintain equipment, be a little more, but it does work and is the best for cows, and free stalls, the best type of bedding. So I'm glad you make it work. So
yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So I think we're getting close here to the end of the session. So I'm going to thank all of you for attending. And of course, thank you to you, Jared, for taking the time today to talk with us about your facility in robotic milking at your dairy in Wisconsin. And hopefully seeing all of you again for our episode number 8 coming up. Time flies, August 19th. And for a change, we're going to move from boxes to rotary robotic parlor, where this farmer has 60 robots, basically 60 stalls, all robotized, I guess, whatever you call it. So a little different take on it. But thank you again, Jared, and thank you everyone for attending, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Marcia.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.